Home sellers, welcome back to Talking Realty. This week's episode is a little bit different than maybe what you're used to. My family and I are doing a little bit of traveling, including a trip to Las Vegas to celebrate Xander's 21st birthday. Our youngest, our little baby, is 21. Unbelievable. So we're going to take a short summer break from new podcast episodes. We've already got tons and tons of great new episode ideas for the other side of this vacation. But first, I'd like to cover some flat fee winners. Let's see what our sellers did this week. For the last week, we had 6 closings for a total of $2,619,500 in home sales. Total commissions saved this week were $123,931 for an average of $20,655 per listing, snatched from those traditional realtors and placed squarely in the seller's pocket, right where it belongs. So what would you do with an extra 20 grand? Well, I'm sure you'll think of something. But first, you got to check out how we're doing things over at OhioMLSFlatFee.com. We'd love to see you over there and help you get your 20 grand. So during our summer break, we're bringing back a few fan favorite episodes that newer listeners might have missed, starting way back with episode 10, Truth Number 5, Every Day is a Good Day to Sell a House. Well, since this episode first aired, we've added more tools and more support on this topic for our seller. We are constantly evolving things around here, but especially for those thinking about pulling their home off the market for the season, whatever that season happens to be. You're going to hear me talk about motivated buyers like Bill, who is a real person, by the way, who showed up during the so-called off season. That's still happening because the market never actually dies. And I'll dive into my proof behind that theory. It's actually not a theory, it's reality during this episode. The biggest update in this episode is that our sellers are staying visible now through platforms like Realtor.com and Homes.com, and they're getting more traction even in the slower times. So quick side note, a lot of people don't know this, but Homes.com sends all buyer leads directly to the seller or their agent instead of selling them to other agents like Zillow and Realtor and pretty much every other site out there does. Anyway, staying visible works no matter what the market's doing. Even during the slow times, our overall views are climbing. We're up 6% for web views over last month, which was peak season, and listing saves are up double digits. So we know buyers are out there looking. If you're thinking about timing the market or maybe hitting pause and coming back fresh until you get through back to school or the holidays or whatever is on your mind about that, this episode is for you. You need to hear this. But before we jump in, there are a handful of new wrinkles that I want to tell you about since this episode aired the first time. First, our Living to Listing course, which is a must-have for sellers who want their home to stand out, who want amazing prep. It's just $29. We want everybody to have access to this amazing course. Works in all 50 states, and it's going to walk you through our home prep tips, photo checklist, and guidance on making the best first market impression. Everything you need to know about getting your home ready to put on the market. It also shows you how buyers think. We do a whole deep dive on buyer mindset and how you can use prep and disclosure as a weapon against inspection problems down the road. This is the same incredible course for a lot more accessible price of $29. Get yours at the link below in the show notes or at talkingrealty.com, or just go to livingtolisting.com, whichever makes you happy. Second, we now offer MLS refreshes. I did a whole episode on this a while back, but the full relaunch of a listing with new photos, new price, in most cases a new MLS number. Throw an open house in there and reignite the buyer activity. So if you feel like you need to come back new, you don't need to take a long break from the market and miss valuable buyers who are positively desperate during these times. Our listing refresh playbook is going to make you look new, even if you've been out there a while, we'll say. So you can get all of this in our ultimate home selling toolkit. Check the show notes or the YouTube comments or head to talkingrealty.com, but it's absolutely free and it has every single word of our refresh playbook. All of it's in there. We held nothing back. All right, let's rewind the clock, jump into this throwback episode of Talking Realty. Every day is a good day to sell a house. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to Talking Realty, the go-to podcast for home sellers looking to save money, save time, and avoid headaches. Whether you're selling a flip, a new build, an income property, or the place you call home, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Glen, 20-year realtor and founder of the Ohio Property Group, where we help home sellers get the most out of their properties when they sell. Most home sellers hate paying huge commissions to realtors. At the Ohio Property Group, we do all the same things as other realtors, but instead of charging a massive commission, we do everything for a low, flat fee. And by the way, that fee is not based on the price of the home. So, our sellers save thousands of dollars and they get better results. To learn more, head over to talkingrealty.com, where you can sign up for our free newsletter or pick up any of our free home seller tools. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Talking Realty podcast so you never miss a thing. Now, let's get to it. So in today's episode, if you've ever said to yourself, you know what, this is just not a good time to sell. This is bad. We're off season. We are, it's the holidays are coming up. You name it. Any reason you could have to say that this is a bad time to sell, you need to stick around for today's episode. Because in today's episode, we're going to dispel you of that myth with truth number 5. The last few episodes, we've been going through our top office truths, and so I'd like to continue that process. Today is truth number 5. Every day is a good day to sell a house. This one actually came out of a situation that happened some years back. Like most of my situations, pretty much everything in my life appears to be some years back. But anyway, I got a call from a guy named Bill. Let's call him Bill. Actually, that's his real name, but I'm not going to use his last name. So anyway, Bill gives me a call. Bill is relocating to a town near where I was working and needed a property. He got kind of an off-cycle promotion, and it involved him moving to a new territory. So he was actually coming from a couple of states away. So you can imagine his sense of urgency was pretty high. This was the first or second week of December. Not necessarily the ideal time to be looking for or selling a house, but truth number 5, every day is a good day to sell a house. Every day is also a good day to buy a house, by the way, but that's a different topic. So anyhow, to call Bill desperate, fairly accurate. I'm going to say that's pretty good. So we look through, I'm going to say maybe 2 trips. So my typical tours were around 6 or 7 homes. So let's just say somewhere between 6 and 12 homes. It probably wasn't 12 because of the time of year and the narrowness of the area they were looking in. He had to live in a certain place. So we find this house that on the outside, honestly, if you drove by it, you would look at the price and look at the outside of this house and think somebody missed here. But it's December. So the sellers were sort of the mind that whatever, it's December. We just expect that we're not going to have any showings. All right. So we want to see it because on paper it meets the criteria. And I'd seen enough homes with them at that point to know that this probably was a good fit. I had been in it. It was listed with my office, but with a different realtor. This was some years back. Anyway, I had checked out the house. So I knew that it was probably going to be a pretty good fit based on the other homes that we'd seen. And so I encouraged them to take a look, even though it was, I'm not sure what the term is, but it was not very attractive on the outside. We'll just leave it at that. Just a weird curb appeal. Anyhow, we get in the house and it checks all the boxes. They love this house. So they end up, because they're under the gun, they end up offering the seller exactly what they're asking for. Now, I had encouraged them as their buyer's agent to maybe do a little negotiating, but they were so afraid, back to, emotions are expensive. They were so afraid they were going to miss this house that they just said, give them whatever they want and we'll make it as easy as possible. We have to be in here in like 35 days. So we got to get it. All right. So great. Well, they got the house and they loved the house. And 2 years later, Bill gets transferred again. Only this time it's with a different company. So there's no fancy reload package. This throwback episode of Talking Realty is brought to you by our friends at Associates Title. This team is shaking things up by focusing on what truly matters, putting you, the customer, first. Whether you're buying, whether you're selling, whether you're investing, doesn't matter. For sale by owner, working with a realtor, they've got your back. They've got incredible cost savings and the latest technology to streamline the whole process. Their secure online portal keeps everyone in the loop: buyers, sellers, lenders, agents, everybody's in, all while keeping your data safe, very important, and communication crystal clear. So if you're getting ready to make a move, don't underestimate the importance of having a great title company on your side. Check them out today at associatestitleinc.com or call my friend Ryan Phillips at 614-419-2418. They're in a bunch of different states, so even if you're not in Ohio, give them a look. Do not leave your title company choice to chance, and definitely don't let the buyer or their agent make that choice for you. All right, back to the show. Well, it's about 2.5 years later, so he's right in prime selling season. And when he goes to sell the house, he's thinking, well, this is great. I've been here a couple years, didn't really do anything to the house, but just tacked on a bunch of money and decided it was time to sell and that he would get all. And what he found was that it was a tougher sell because it was peak selling season and he had a lot more competition. Plus, he still had the original curb appeal problem. So regardless of the fact that they loved this house, they had good photography and beautiful description, there was just no getting there. As you know, my advice to him was, hey, man, it's overpriced. So, but he didn't feel that way. He felt that, hey, we paid top dollar for this thing. I think we can get top dollar. Now, that's a whole other conversation, which we've had a few times. But the moral of the story is that regardless of the day of the year, the season, the events that are going on, everything is relative. So as a buyer, when you go out on the market in the middle of the holidays, there's not a lot to look at. But there's also very few other buyers that you're competing with, relative. But as a seller, you're in the driver's seat. So I've had a lot of sellers that will call us up in December and say, hey, we're going to take it off the market for the holidays, and then we're going to put it back on this spring. And my advice is universally the same after I ask a couple of questions, which is usually, is there some other reason driving that? No, we just don't want it to be looking stale in the spring. Well, you want your number, and this is your number. So unless you're willing to come down, I would leave it on the market because of the bills of the world. And believe me, there's a lot of bills in the world. When your house is available 2 weeks before Christmas, any buyer that sets up a showing the week or 2 weeks before Christmas is motivated. And a motivated buyer is going to have an emotional response. And if this house is even 85% of what they're looking for, they're going to pull the trigger, and they're probably going to be like Bill, and they're not going to do a lot of haggling because they understand they have very few options and they're the ones under the gun. Nobody casually looks for homes when the snow is flying and when there's Christmas carolers out. Nobody casually looks for homes when it's 20 below. If it's bad weather or bad timing, quote unquote, as a seller, I'm okay with that because I'm trying to sell. And unless I just don't want to be disturbed, maybe I got a lot of guests or something coming for the holidays and I don't want to be disturbed. Okay. But I'm telling you, I think you're missing out on some of the best buyers out there, at least in my 20 some years of experience. Not unusual at all for us to be negotiating during the holidays. Sometimes it's the only time people have off, depending on their job. So you may keep all that in mind. I get that you don't want your house to look stale, but I would also tell you that when everybody else is doing that, you're probably smarter sticking around because you're going to be one of the only people left at the party. The other thing about December buyers or off-season buyers is that they're not nearly as picky about price, about condition, and it's not that they won't do the inspection. They're just going to not be nearly as difficult during that process because they're dying to get in this place. They have a lot more on the line than you do. Unless you're motivated to sell for the same reason, well, then we've got a match made in heaven because everybody's motivated. So we'll definitely get it there. They also understand they don't have a lot of other choices out there. So if they don't choose yours and make it work, then they're going to be renting or they're going to be in some other situation that is not very attractive. They're much more likely to be forgiving. So the point of all this is that there's a balance that happens. that when fewer homes are on the market, your house stands out in a good way. And when lots of homes are on the market, there's a lot more buyers out there relative to your competition. The other reason is that you know what the market is doing right now. So if you're rolling up to a holiday season or a time when you feel, the other popular one is back to school. Hey, we're going through all the back to school stuff, so we don't want to have our house in the market because nobody's looking at houses. Wrong. People are looking at houses nearly every day of the year. And if you wait, who knows what's going to happen? Interest rates could do what they do. Multiple homes similar to yours could come on, and out of desperation, maybe they sell cheap. Who knows? You can't predict what the market will do. You do know where it is today. So it could be better, but it could be worse when you decide to go back on the market. But if your goal is to sell, and presumably sooner than later, then I would try to sell the house. I wouldn't take it off the market and wait for a better time. Who knows when or if it will ever be a better time than today. Another thing we have to remind sellers a lot about is that the market never actually dies. It ebbs and flows seasonally, especially in Ohio. However, it never completely dies. And that's because life continues in spite of the season, in spite of the calendar. That people die, people get married, people get divorced, people change jobs, like my friend Bill. All sorts of life happens that causes people to have to move. So if your home is not on the market, I promise you, you're missing opportunities with those buyers that are out that are uber desperate. And those are not some buyers you want to miss. So unless you have another reason for taking the property off the market, my theory is you should keep it on the market. And if you're not in a hurry, that's fine. Take your time. We'll cover this in a later episode because you're in the driver's seat. As a seller, you have choices every single day. You can continue selling at your current price if you're not in a hurry. You can take it off the market if you just don't want to sell it right now, but that is the only reason I would take it off the market. Or you can lower your price and do something to try to jumpstart today's buyers. Maybe put it into a new lower price range that will attract one of today's desperate buyers, but we've covered that before. As a seller, you have a few choices. You can leave it on the market at the price it's in, and maybe tomorrow's buyer will come along and give you what you want. You can also invest in the time. Just take your time. You've got the time. If you're not desperate to sell, wait it out. Who knows? And third, if you really don't want to sell it right now, or you've changed your mind, or circumstances are in the way, go ahead and take it off the market. You're in the driver's seat all the time. I just want to bust that old myth that you have to sell during peak season, because the truth is you don't. And truth number 5, every day is a good day to sell a house. Thanks for sticking around. Hopefully you got a few things out of today's episode, or at least had a little bit of fun. Before we go, I want to remind you that the Talking Realty podcast is brought to you by the Ohio Property Group, a family-owned brokerage offering real estate services to all 88 Ohio counties. If today's episode sparked a new idea, or maybe answered a burning question, please don't keep it to yourself. Take a few seconds and rate and review Talking Realty if you haven't already. And be sure to subscribe so you never miss a thing. By the way, if there are topics or questions or guests you think that we should have on the show, head over to talkingrealty.com and say hi. I would love to hear from you. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, keep making smart moves in your real estate journey. This is Glen signing off for the Ohio Property Group. And remember, you can sell it. We can help.